We have some major updates of mixed martial arts, starting with the news MMA community reacts to UFC Apex closing news. For those who don't know, UFC Apex opened in 2019 and has been used for shows like The Ultimate Fighter and Dana White's Contender Series, as well as regular UFC fight nights, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic when fans couldn't attend in person. But some fans feel that the events held there haven't been as exciting as others, and the venue's limitations have affected their enjoyment. To address this, the UFC is planning to renovate the Apex starting in November 2024, with the upgrades expected to be completed by the summer of 2025. During the renovation, UFC will hold more fight night events in different locations. Here's how the MMA community reacted to the news of the UFC Apex construction. Thank God! Leave it closed. I hope this means less UFC events going forward and more quality fight nights. No one cares. Unpopular opinion, but UFC needs those Apex cards to build their prospects and to shake up the roster. Also, those fights end up being bangers sometimes. Thank Christ, leave it closed for permanent, please. Good news. Don't open it again unless it's for training. I'm assuming it'll be bigger? If so, then it's about time. I get the idea for the Apex, and it was brilliant at the time, but it really needs a fair live crowd to be half as exciting as an arena event. I've prayed for times like this. Khamzat responded to a fan's request by throwing a punch, and he did it beautifully.
Hein? Vas-y. Ouais. Vas-y, non, laisse. Vas-y. 100%.
Shara is worried about being released from the UFC. He recently secured his 14th undefeated win by defeating a Polish fighter at a UFC fight night, which was the last fight on his current contract. During a recent interview, Shara expressed his concerns about his contract situation. He reveals that, as most of you may know, the UFC recently released Muhammad Mokaev, who was also an undefeated fighter. Shara used this as an example to highlight his fear that the UFC might do the same to him. Basically, he's saying that his contract with the UFC has expired and he hasn't received any updates from them about a renewal, so he's afraid the UFC might fire him.
У меня сейчас был последний бой по контракту, того контракта, который мне изначально предложили. Сейчас надеюсь на новый контракт.
Как думаешь?
А то после Макаева уже.
Чуть, да, рискованная история.
Чуть на суете, короче.
У тебя бонусы, зрелищность, ты на контакте с матчмейкерами, с Даной. Да. То есть нет как будто бы предпосылок, чтобы тебя с тобой не продлили или продлили на более плохих условиях контракт.
Ну, по сути, да. У меня менеджер Али Абдалазиз, Ризван. Они свое дело на 5 с плюсом знают, так что я им доверил это все и спокоен.
Sean Strickland's next opponent has been revealed. Strickland's last fight was against Paulo Costa at UFC 302, after which Strickland made it clear that his next fight would be for the title. Recently, Strickland's coach, Eric Nixick, revealed in an interview that Strickland's upcoming fight will be in December, with 2 potential opponents, Israel Adesanya or Dricus du Plessis. As most of you already know, at UFC 305, Adesanya and du Plessis will fight, and whoever wins that fight will go on to face Strickland.
In my mind, he's never really lost the belt. There was such a close fight against Dricus. He dominated Izzy. I think if Izzy wins that fight, that's an easy rematch. Izzy's going to want to try to get that revenge. And if Dricus wins, I think that you put that to rest and give Sean the opportunity to avenge that loss, you know? So both of them make sense to me. I think Sean has a claim at the next shot at that belt and, you know, sit on it. I mean, these guys fight next week, so we can fight by November or December.
Belal Muhammad is getting a lot of love back home in Chicago. Since Belal became champion, he's been receiving a lot of love from the fans. When he returned to Chicago for the first time after winning, the fans gave him a grand welcome. Now, once again, fans are celebrating Belal becoming champion. Israel Adesanya went off on Dricus du Plessis for saying he'd be the first real African champion in the UFC. Some time ago during an interview, du Plessis claimed that he's the real African fighter. Now Adesanya is responding to that. He expressed frustration that Dricus doesn't really understand the struggles that come with that experience. Adesanya called out Dricus for living a privileged life in South Africa, saying he's kind of sheltered from the real hardships that fighters like him have faced. It's clear that Adesanya feels a strong connection to his roots and wants to make sure people recognize the sacrifices some fighters have made just to get to where they are.
You know, Abdul Razak said it before his fight about 3 weeks ago, saying like, you know, I respect Dricus, but he's a for what he said. He's a because Dricus is saying, I train in Africa, I do this in Africa, and then people like Razak and myself who are forced to flee our own country because of, you know, a better opportunity. He'll never understand that because he lives behind the gates of his privileged life in South Africa, and he's able to do that there. So someone like Francis, who had to cross the desert to go overseas to go train, if you know Francis' story, you can't call him not a real African champion because he didn't train in Africa. It's like, bro, are you kidding? The guy got sent back out to the desert 6-7 times to go die, and he survived. Like the things he said, and even without Francis being champion, without myself being champion, without Kamaru being champion, he would have never been champion. We paved the way for him, and then he comes out there and tries to take it all for himself. What kind of mindset is it that you see 3 African champions and you're going to be the 4th one who tries to say take it all for himself? That's a colonialist mindset, and he doesn't understand the error of his ways. But I will show him the way.
Alexander Volkanovski shows off his breakdancing skills.
You're a bit of a fan of breakdancing, I understand, because I saw this video and it gained my... Look at this.
I think he qualifies, you know what I mean? What do you reckon?
Bob, would you mind doing another one for us?
I could do it.
You want to do a narrow down there?